This podcast is provided for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only, without any express or implied warranty of any kind, including warranties of accuracy, completeness, or fitness for any particular purpose.
Hi everyone, welcome to our ABCC's podcast. This time it is a video podcast. It's our very first one. My name is Marcus, and finally you can put a name to, you can put a face to our names. And this is Alan.
Hi everyone, welcome back. Hopefully it's the first of many videos.
I think this is gonna be a first of many. Okay, so today we'll be talking about Ledger. So there was a very big issue that happened with Ledger recently. It was a little bit over a week ago that Ledger actually revealed its Recover service. So this Recover service was something that was extremely interesting. I think it was an opt-in feature, and then they allowed you to recover your seed phrase. But the issue was when they recovered seed phrase, they needed it to they were gonna split your seed phrase into 3 different shards.
Correct.
So what are your thoughts about this recovery seed phrase part?
I think first of all, it's good that Ledger has new innovative service, but I think this is a bit too extreme because Ledger's been marketing their products like your seed phrase never leaves the device,
Right.
And then suddenly they announced this new service, Ledger Recovery, which is like a subscription-based opt-in service, which allows people to subscribe and able to recover their seed phrase in the future in case they lost it. So so from my understanding is that they will split into 3 different shards, and it will be entrusted in 3 different parties.
Yeah, so that was my question, right? Like, how are you supposed to even trust like these 3 different parties that you entrust to? And not only that, they also require your ID in order for you to make use of this service.
Yeah, I think it's a bit. I think for some specific users, people might like it or they might subscribe to it. But I think for most of the Ledger user or crypto users, the market hasn't been very favorable with their decision, right? So there was a lot of discussion going on and a lot of negative comments regarding with this new service.
Right, I think the negativity of this service is the most. And in fact, the funny thing is, the very next day, right? People have been saying like, why is this possible to do so? But the very next day, after they reviewed this Recover service, there was actually a tweet that was dug up by one of the people on social media. There was a tweet that was dug up that was actually tweeted by Ledger themselves. So Ledger themselves actually tweeted saying that, the secure element chip part, there is no way that your seed phrase can be extracted from it. But however, Ledger Recover service actually says that they can split your seed phrase into 3 different shards via the secure element chip. So in actual fact, they are contradicting themselves. And that's actually the biggest cause of concern, because everyone thought the same thing, right? Like, oh, your private key is always safe in your hardware wallet. Like, how are you able to do that? So that was the extremely scary part. And but then of course Ledger came and say in the Twitter space right after saying that, you can always don't upgrade your firmware.
Opt-in,
but firmware part.
Eventually you have to opt in, right?
Yeah.
Because you eventually have to upgrade to use
You eventually have to,
exactly.
You eventually have to upgrade your
For
firmware.
first years you can avoid it, but after that you still have to. I think like for my personal experience, like because I've been using Ledger for many years, I think the issue is knowing there's a risk of leaking the private key is the scariest part. I mean, I understand Ledger is safe, it's a good brand, it's been around a long time. They won't deliberately sell your key or something. But the issue is you don't know which day they might have a bug in the system.
Exactly.
And then suddenly, your optional services has been opted for you, and then your key has been shared out.
Exactly. I think one of the part that was shared by others as well is, what if the government comes in
Oh yeah, that's also a part that a lot of a lot of the users were discussing, because you have to do your ID and with the recovery service,
Right.
right?
Yep.
So I think it's so in a way they can easily associate with your identity, with your keys.
Exactly. And then the government can actually say that, we want to have this information, these records, and that's why people, users are thinking like this is not something that you can be anonymous anymore, because they want to keep it themselves in their own ledger, their own hardware wallet to be anonymous. But in this case, it can never happen anymore for them.
Yeah, and I think what makes what makes the whole thing worse is, I think the initial reply from the Ledger team hasn't been good as well, right?
Correct.
Because remember, like they were saying on Twitter, it's like, oh, they could have done this secretly all along, like all these years without the users knowing, right?
Yeah.
That's why what actually happens is it went to another topic is people trust Ledger not being open source all these years because of their marketing and branding. Now they have been challenging Ledger again, which actually enforced Ledger to launch their open source roadmap.
Right.
So they actually include open sourcing their software and the upcoming roadmap before they launch this new recover services.
Should have been the other way around.
Yeah, but end of the day, I think the damage has been done. I think a lot of the users will choose to sell the Ledger or not use it, and goes to use the other hardware wallet.
But then again, like even if they do the open source part, because the code has always been closed source, right? So nobody really knows what's going on behind. Nobody really knows what is in the secure element chip that they mentioned. But if you look at an open source option like what they mentioned for the new roadmap, it actually opens up to a lot of vulnerabilities as well, because you're exposing everything to the outside world, right?
Yes, correct. So exactly. Also, this is also another risk is having open source is in a way you let people more opportunity to attack your system.
Yep.
So I don't know, but in my opinion, I think Ledger has gone against what all these years of their marketing and what they've been promoting themselves. I think it will be it takes a lot of time for the market to gain the trust again, to earn the trust again.
And I think everyone that a lot of people that after the FTX incident, they were more aware of safekeeping their own crypto for themselves. A lot of people decided to purchase maybe a hardware wallet like Ledger, like Trezor, because of the FTX incident. And now Ledger came back. And now with this Ledger incident, do you see users, crypto investors, do you see them putting their monies back into centralized exchanges instead for safekeeping, for storage? Or what do you think is
actually? I think
the best?
it could be, but I think now users will choose more carefully with the centralized exchange. So I think they will really do more their due diligence in terms of the team behind it and the license behind it, in order to make sure the assets is safe. Because I think with what happened with Ledger now, I think it's actually like a wake up call for a lot of people to say, oh, actually this cold wallet might not be safe as they think it is.
Yep.
So I mean, you can always do more in terms of your cyber security and how you keep your crypto safe. But I think this time is definitely, I'm not sure they definitely go back to centralized exchange, but I think it will help a lot of the crypto users to rethink their how to store their assets, right?
I think because traditionally, if we look at fiat monies, your Sing dollars, your US dollars, all these fiat monies are actually handled by third parties. Most of the people actually store their fiat monies with third parties, which are the banks or maybe an asset management company, so on and so forth. A lot people don't really store their fiat monies in cash in their homes or a hardware wallet for their fiat monies, right?
Yeah, true. I think in the recent 30-40 years, everyone used the banks.
Yep.
But before that, there was a lot not trust in banks, right? The Great Depression, all those era. So I think nowadays everyone just go to the banks right away.
Do you
But-
foresee crypto going that route or?
I think it's like a cycle, right? Because nowadays, like a lot
Right.
of the US banks failing.
Ah,
Then a lot of people say, okay, banks are not safe. And then they buy gold bars or
Seems to be
buy
nothing
crypto,
safe,
I don't know. Like all sort of different assets to replace just not to keep money in the banks. So I think like diversify is probably the key in a way. Like okay, you should keep some in the banks or keep in the if you're able to not
even if
in
you have
the
like hardware wallets, you should have
Yeah.
multiple of them. As
yeah,
well.
multiple of them. Just to maybe even multiple brand,
Right.
just to make sure you don't lose everything in one go.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the better advice as well. I think there are definitely a lot of lessons learned from especially this Ledger incident. I think the first part, like you mentioned, the communication part, them communicating what can be done, cannot be done, wasn't clear at all right from the start. And even until now, there are still so many questions that are being brought up against them. I think the communication part needs to be extremely clear, especially for products like Ledger, a hardware wallet whereby people keep their crypto wealth in it. It has to be crystal clear. Like the absolute yes and no has to be made clear on them. I think that's one of the most important lessons that I feel that we have learned from this.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, especially like for Ledger, like this kind of side, like security services, when they launch new products or service, they should I think they should even test the market a little bit before doing like a big announcement, right?
Okay.
Like I remember like I saw the video on Twitter, like how they announced their new service. They were so proud of it. Like, oh, they're going to launch something new, and they said it's just with like a subscription, you never worry about losing your keys. And I think it actually went all like not
They
what they expected.
They didn't
I
test the
don't-
market.
Yeah, I think they didn't test the market. I think even the way they like if they do it differently, like they slowly launch it to say, oh, they might do this, and then at least they can get some real feedback right away, but not like, oh, I launched a new product and then get
And then they don't know if it's gonna.
yeah, I don't. Yeah,
They probably didn't have
I
anything
mean,
to.
as a big company like them, they should have done more market research on
They
this.
didn't even have any
topics,
kind
right?
of risk planning on that. Like
I
mitigating.
I don't think
They,
so.
they didn't expect the kind of FUD to hit them probably.
I don't think so. I mean, you would expect it more from them to launch something like this.
Yeah, and it actually shows like a very big part as well, because the user experience wise in the crypto scene is actually still a long way from being perfect. Because right now, like the storage of your seed phrase, like 12 to 24 words, I mean that itself is really a pain sometimes to a lot of people. So the user experience wise, there's still a lot of mileage to go. And I think with all this, we also want to also always tell our viewers and things like that no matter what, it's always better to be safe. Always make sure that you do your own kind of research as well.
Best safe than sorry.
Yeah, no matter what others say about their product, their device, it's always better for you to go and do your own research. I think that is basic, the basic 101 of crypto.
Definitely. Just do more research, understand more about what you're using, understand the product before you go all in, I think.
And with that, I think we have come to the end of our podcast this time.
Okay, thank you everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The information contained in or provided from or through this podcast is not intended to be and does not constitute as financial advice, investment advice, trading advice, or any form of advices. The information in this podcast is general in nature and is not specific to you, the users, or anyone else. You should not make any decision, be it financial, investment, trading, or otherwise, based on any of the information presented in this podcast without undertaking independent due diligence and consultation with a professional broker or financial advisory. You understand that you are using any and all information shared in this podcast at your own risk. You are solely liable for any losses that you may incur from investing, and in no event shall we be liable for any losses which may be incurred while investing.